What's with all the fanfare in the city today? Who's having a wedding? You haven't heard? The governor's eldest daughter is getting married. Word is it's a shotgun wedding with the High General. They had to rush the ceremony. Hearing that conversation on the street felt like a bolt of lightning striking me. My mind went completely blank. After a long moment, I let out a guttural roar toward the sky, clutching my head as I collapsed to my knees. This guy's lost it. Look at him. He looks like he just crawled out of a storm drain. He's definitely out of his mind. Let's get away from him. He's big and looks strong, and look at that blade on his belt. If he goes postal, somebody's going to get hurt. The crowd quickly dispersed, leaving me kneeling alone on the pavement. I pounded my fists against my skull, trying to stop the agonizing pressure that felt like it would split my head open. I've only been gone for 3 months. Why couldn't you wait for me? Do you have any idea what I went through during those 3 months? Sarah, why did you betray me? My heart-wrenching screams echoed down the street. The governor's daughter they were talking about was Sarah Kingston, my fiancée, and the High General, Caleb Stone, was the man I once considered my most loyal lieutenant. I had treated him like a brother. I was the one who taught him everything he knew, handing down the combat skills, the tactical maneuvers, and every bit of strategic insight I'd gained over the years. I never imagined he would not only take my rank, but also take my woman. The more I thought about it, the more the air felt heavy in my chest. A metallic taste filled my mouth, and I spat out a mouthful of blood before the world went black. I don't know how much time passed. It was a torrential downpour that finally woke me. I had been left in a potter's field, tossed aside like a corpse. My sword was gone, and my clothes were little more than rags, though fortunately, they hadn't bothered to strip me. I dragged myself through the mud and reined back toward the city. I had to see it for myself. I needed to hear them explain it to my face. As I neared the city limits, I grabbed some large palm fronds and fashioned a crude poncho and a wide-brimmed hat to hide my face. By the time I reached the Kingston estate, it was the following morning. The rain had washed the streets clean, and the air was crisp, but I was in no mood for the scenery. Just as I stepped toward the gates, they swung open. A swarm of servants gathered as the governor's daughter and the High General emerged. Caleb Stone stood tall, his expression cold and professional as he hovered protectively by Sarah's side. He moved with careful precision as he helped her down the steps. Sarah was as stunning as ever, but her hands were resting protectively over a slight, unmistakable curve in her abdomen. She walked with a heavy, deliberate pace toward the waiting carriage. Caleb personally lifted her inside. Just then, a maid spotted me standing there, dazed. A beggar on the very first day, the general and the lady go to the cathedral to give thanks? Talk about bad luck, she muttered, flicking a silk handkerchief at me with a look of pure disgust. Autumn, don't be rude, Sarah's voice drifted from the carriage. The street doesn't belong to you. He has every right to be here. Go give him some silver as an apology. Sarah handed the girl a small pouch of coins. The maid stomped over, grumbling something I couldn't quite catch, threw the money at my feet, and hurried back. I held the silver in my hand, watching the carriage disappear into the distance. She was already pregnant. What was the point of even asking? I handed the silver to an old man selling vegetables on the corner and turned away. Sarah was the only daughter of Governor Arthur Kingston. Arthur was the younger brother of the Commonwealth Supreme Commander, and since he had no sons of his own, he was heavily relied upon by the central government. He was a man of immense talent, commanding half the nation's military. Over the years, his campaigns had expanded the Commonwealth borders significantly. And then there was me, Logan Sterling. I had followed him since I was a boy. I was leading platoons at 13. By 15, I was a lieutenant, and by 18, I was the High General. I had fought in countless battles and never tasted defeat. On the battlefield, I was known for my signature scarlet trench coat. When I drew my custom officer's saber, I moved through enemy lines like a force of nature. The enemy gave me a nickname, the Red Lightning. In recent years, the governor had been slowly handing the reins of the military over to me, because everyone assumed I would eventually be his son-in-law. I had surpassed even his expectations, and the governor trusted my judgment completely. Over the last 2 years, I had won some of the toughest engagements in the Commonwealth's history. I was 21 now. In any ordinary family, I'd have a house full of kids by now. The Supreme Commander had even offered to arrange a marriage for me with a high-ranking official's daughter, but I had politely declined. I was waiting for one person, Sarah Kingston. I was born the son of a hunter. When I was 9 years old, I was out on horseback chasing a prize buck. I tracked it for miles. When I got within 50 yards, I drew my bow and fired in one fluid motion. The arrow pierced the buck's neck, and it dropped instantly. Huh, luck is on my side today, I shouted, hopping off my horse and drawing a hunting knife to dress the kill. Hurry! Spoken like a true young hero. A booming voice called out behind me. I spun around, knife raised, eyes narrowed at the group approaching me. The man in the lead wore exquisite hunting leathers. He was tall, fair-skinned, and had a sharp, refined look about him. It was obvious he was highborn. He had 5 fully armed guards trailing him. "Ha! Don't be afraid, little hero. I'm just out for a hunt myself. I saw you riding and shooting just now. The skill was remarkable. To hit a vital spot from 50 paces while mounted. There are grown men in my service who would be put to shame by that. With the right training, you make a hell of a general. What do you say, kid? Want to join the service and make something of yourself?" Seeing he meant no harm, I sheathed my knife. "My parents are at home. I need their permission first." "Ha! Loyal to your kin. I like that. Lead the way. We'll pay them a visit." He ordered his men to carry my deer, and we headed back to my cabin. After a brief negotiation, the governor left 10 gold bars with my parents and took me with him. For a common hunter, that was more money than they'd see in 10 lifetimes. From then on, I lived at the Kingston estate. He had his top combat instructor train me and personally taught me tactics and grand strategy. It turned out I was a natural-born soldier. Whether it was hand-to-hand combat, weaponry, or field maneuvers, I progressed at a lightning pace. Maybe it was my background as a hunter, but I always felt that trapping a buck and ambushing an enemy battalion were essentially the same thing. I was 11 when I first went to the governor's main residence, and that was when I met Sarah. Even as a young girl, she was tall and graceful, wearing fine dresses and jewelry that made her look like something out of a fairy tale. She skipped right into my heart the moment I saw her. Being a boy from the mountains who had spent the last 2 years in boot camps, I had never seen a girl like her. I stood there staring like an idiot, which made everyone laugh. Sarah gave me a cold look, ignored me, and walked inside holding her father's hand. That was our first meeting. I fell for her instantly. She thought I was a joke. The governor made me study literature and etiquette alongside Sarah. He told me that a good commander shouldn't just know how to fight. He needed to be cultured. Otherwise, no matter how high I rose, I'd just be a thug in a uniform. While on campaign, the governor had taught me to read, but it was mostly military manuals. So, I became the princess's shadow. We went to the tutor together, learned ballroom dancing together, and practiced music together. At first, she looked down on me. She said my hands were meant for steel and lead, not for the piano or a paintbrush. But as time went on, she started staying after class to patiently explain things I didn't understand. In return, I told her stories about the front lines and her father's greatest moments of glory. Sometimes she'd have me show off my combat drills, clapping like a fan when I did something impressive. I didn't notice when it started, but eventually she began watching my training sessions with her chin resting in her hands, her face flushing as she looked at me with a new kind of intensity. After that, whenever I returned from a campaign, she would be the first one at the gates, grabbing my hand and pulling me inside. The governor would just shake his head and smile. Well, you can't keep a girl forever, I suppose. In the past, when I took a city, I was always at the front of the charge, but I never cared about the spoils of war. I only cared about the mission. My idol was the governor. I wanted to be a mastermind like him, not some low-level looter. But eventually, I started trading for rare jewelry and fine things to bring back for Sarah. "Close your eyes," I said as I pulled her into her sitting room. "For what?" "I told you, when we're alone, you can just call me Sarah," she said, her smile never fading. "Sarah, just close them. I have a surprise for you." "Fine. But if it's not good, you're in trouble," she said with a playful pout, shutting her eyes. I pulled a small, velvet-lined box from my belt. Inside was a sapphire necklace that was nothing short of perfection. On the way back from the front, our army had passed through a town famous for its jewelers. A lot of soldiers were hawking things they'd found, but I went to the most high-end boutique in the district. The centerpiece was a flawless blue sapphire, surrounded by 20 smaller, pure stones set in a gold chain. It was a masterpiece. I'd offered everything I'd earned from that campaign, but the shopkeeper, a stout man with greedy eyes, just smiled and said it wasn't enough. Frustrated, I drew my officer's saber and slammed it onto the counter, looking him dead in the eye. "How about now?" I asked coldly. The shopkeeper broke into a cold sweat. He gave a shaky smile, handed the saber back to me with both hands, and packed the necklace into a premium wooden box. I took the necklace out and fastened it around her neck. As I leaned in, I could hear her breathing and the steady beat of her heart. "Okay, open them." I handed her a silver hand mirror. "Oh my God, Logan, where did you get this? It's stunning. This must have cost a fortune." Even as a girl who grew up in luxury, she was visibly breathless. "Do you like it?" "I love it." She didn't say much else, but I could see the genuine joy in her eyes. "You've been gone so long this time. Come on, I'm going to help you catch up on the lessons you missed." Before I could even answer, she was dragging me toward the study. The next day was the local Founders' Day fair. Sarah, who rarely got to go out in public, insisted that I take her. To the world, she was the poised, untouchable daughter of the governor. But with me, she was just a girl. She'd tease me into buying her candied apples and try to pick out fashionable accessories for me that she knew I'd hate, insisting I wear them just for her. By noon, even she was getting tired. We stopped at a reputable tavern for lunch. Having skipped breakfast, I started eating like a man who had been in the trenches for a month. Sarah sat beside me, her head resting on her hand as she watched me with a smile. "Slow down, Logan. Nobody's going to take it from you. If you're still hungry, I'll order more." She poured me a glass of water. "Here, drink some water." In that moment, the highborn lady was as gentle as a kitten. "Blessings upon you, travelers. The brothers at our monastery are seeking donations to restore our chapel. Any charity would be a merit to your souls." A gruff voice broke the moment. I looked up to see a massive, burly man in a monk's robe, followed by several disciples, and a few nuns trailing at the back. It was an odd group. I scanned them carefully. The lead monk had a face that looked more suited for a mugshot than a monastery. He was pure muscle, and he moved with a light, rhythmic step, a trained fighter. Why were monks this capable out begging for change? Then I looked at the nuns. The fact that they were traveling together was strange enough, but as I looked closer, I noticed they were wearing light makeup. One of them even had on lipstick. I caught a glimpse of something hard tucked into their waistbands. Shit, this was a setup. I quietly shifted my chair to put myself between them and Sarah. Sarah, being the kind soul she was already reaching into her purse. I took the pouch from her and tossed it directly at the lead monk. He caught it, momentarily stunned. "Bless you," he said, stepping closer. "In exchange for your kindness, allow me to read your palms and tell your fortunes." Since when did monks start reading palms? I thought that was for the carnival psychics. I barked, stopping him in his tracks. "You seem to have quite the varied skill set, brother." The monk's eyes flared with a murderous intensity. "Fine, you caught us. Doesn't matter. You're still going to hell. Kill them." The moment the words left his mouth, his crew lunged. I kicked the heavy oak table over, slamming it into the first wave and splashing hot soup and drinks everywhere to create a distraction. I grabbed Sarah, who was frozen in shock, and bolted for the door. At the entrance, I set her down. "Go, get the guards. I'll hold them here. If we both run, they'll catch us both." I grabbed a heavy iron fire poker and turned back to face them. By the time Sarah returned with a squad of soldiers, I had been beaten into a coma. When I finally opened my eyes, I was in a guest room at the Kingston estate. "You're finally awake. You scare me to death, Logan. You've been out for 2 days. You must be starving. Let me get you some soup." Sarah was standing by the bed, her beautiful eyes swollen from crying. She fed me personally, explaining that the governor had investigated the incident. They were remnants of Cell from the last territory we'd annexed, looking for revenge. By the time the guards had secured the tavern, the rest of them had vanished. Sarah looked after me for over a month until I was fully recovered. During that time, the last barriers between us finally broke down, and the governor gave his silent blessing to our relationship. Not long after I recovered, while Sarah and I were in the honeymoon phase of our romance, the government issued orders for a full-scale invasion of the Northern Republic. The Republic was a formidable power. The governor appointed me Supreme Allied Commander of the expedition, promising that if I returned victorious, he would give me Sarah's hand in marriage officially. The night before I shipped out, I couldn't help myself. We spent our first night together. I left with total confidence that I would finish the mission. She stayed behind, tearfully begging me to come home safe. The war started well. We took several border towns with minimal resistance. I had always been a strict commander. I ordered my men to treat the civilians with respect and opened the captured granaries to feed the starving locals. While marching through a desolate stretch of no man's land, I saw a woman sitting on the ground, looking hopeless. I rode up to her. "Mom, there's nothing for miles out here. It's dangerous. You need to move on." The woman wore a heavy headscarf, her face covered in grime and dust. "I sprained my ankle," she said, her voice trembling. "I thought I was going to die out here. Please, can you help me?" "Caleb," I called out. "Sir, find her a horse. Let her ride with the supply train until we reach a safe zone." "Understood, sir." Caleb dismounted to help her. "No, I'm scared," the woman cried, shrinking away from Caleb. "Please, let me ride with you. I can see you're a kind man. I trust you. Don't leave me with the soldiers." Reluctantly, I pulled her up onto my horse. With the extra weight, I began to drift toward the rear of the column. As we rode, she spoke up. General, because of this war you started, people are losing their homes. They're suffering. How does that make you feel? It was a question I hated asking myself, but as a soldier, my duty was to follow orders. All I could do was ensure my men didn't harass civilians. I picked up plenty of stragglers over the years. In fact, I had found Caleb on a battlefield years ago when he was just a kid and brought him into the service. I'm a soldier. I follow orders. What I can do is my best to protect the innocent within my reach. Yeah, sounds nice. But what about the ones you can't reach? Do they just deserve to die? I felt something was wrong with her tone. But before I could move, a sudden wave of paralysis washed over me. My vision blurred, and the world faded to gray. Splash! A bucket of ice-cold water hit my face. The sheer pain, radiating through my body, forced my eyes open. I squinted against the light, trying to take in my surroundings. It was an interrogation room. I was stripped to the waist, bound with heavy leather straps to a wooden cross. A table in front of me was covered in instruments of torture, some still stained with fresh blood. Ah, the High General is awake. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Isabella North, 6th Princess of the Northern Republic. My father has placed the command of this theater in my hands. And you are my prisoner. I looked at the woman walking toward me. She was dressed in sharp military fatigues, looking lean and efficient. Even without makeup and in a masculine uniform, her stunning beauty was undeniable. She reached out, grabbing my chin and forcing it up, looking at me with pure disdain. So, the legendary young general is only human after all. All it took was a little bit of theater to bring you down. She then ran a long, slender finger across my cheek, her expression shifting from contempt to a strange kind of pity. You're quite handsome, actually. I hate to see you suffer, which is why I had the men work you over while you were still unconscious. Looking at this woman, whose emotions shifted like the wind, I felt a genuine chill. I guess I should thank you then, Princess. Clever play. You knew I had a soft spot for refugees. You played the part perfectly. Even the smell of the sweat on you was just a cover for the sedative. I lost fair and square. Do what you're going to do. Oh, it's not that dire. If you defect to our side, I can guarantee your safety. You'll have the same rank and wealth you had in the Commonwealth. She looked at me with total confidence, as if she assumed I had no other choice. Who tries to recruit a man after beating the hell out of him? If I say yes now, all that torture would have been for nothing. So you're saying you'll consider it? Her voice was calm, as if she already knew the answer. Not a chance. Governor Kingston is going to give me his daughter's hand. Unless your emperor is planning on letting me marry you. Before I could finish the joke, a stinging slap landed across my face. A prisoner does not mock a princess. Guard, continue the sessions. She swept out of the room, and the world went dark again as the beating resumed. For the next 2 months, the routine never changed. I was fed, beaten into unconsciousness, allowed to recover, and then beaten again. But every time they struck me, I thought of the governor's kindness and Sarah's love. I couldn't betray them. I had to survive. I had to go back and marry her. One day, after my meal, the beating didn't come. Instead, the heavy steel door creaked open, and Isabella entered, this time wearing an elegant silk gown. She wrinkled her nose at the metallic scent of blood in the room. So many days, and you're still a hard nut to crack. Since pain doesn't work, let's try something different. She gave a nod to the guard beside her. He produced a small case and took out 2 large blue pills. He forced my jaw open and shoved them down my throat. I tried to spit them out, but it was useless. Don't bother, she said, her voice lazy and seductive as she sat in a chair. Those dissolve instantly. Within minutes, a feverish heat began to radiate from my core. My skin flushed deep red. Looking at the princess sitting before me, I felt a primal fire ignite in my veins. I realized then it was an aphrodisiac, a potent chemical grade of it. My body began to act against my will. I strained against my bonds, the wooden frame of the cross groaning and cracking under the pressure of my sudden, drug-induced strength. Isabella hadn't expected this reaction. A flash of genuine panic crossed her face. She shouted for the guards to double the restraints, but it was too late. With a deafening crack, I tore the wooden beams apart. The drug had acted like a massive dose of adrenaline. In a blur of motion, the guards were on the floor, breathless and broken. I turned my bloodshot eyes toward Isabella, who had collapsed to the floor in terror. I scooped her up and carried her toward the adjoining quarters. When I woke, I was alone and naked. I found some discarded clothes and a blade and fought my way out of the compound. After days of nonstop travel, fueled by the desperate hope of seeing Sarah again, I finally reached the city, only to hear the news that she was marrying someone else. The shock was too much. I collapsed. The next day, when I went to see her, to demand the truth. I saw the pregnancy. My heart turned to ash. I spent the next month wandering the streets like a ghost. Then came the news. Governor Kingston was personally leading a new campaign against the Northern Republic, with Caleb Stone as his high general. It was said the princess, though visibly pregnant, insisted on accompanying her husband to the front. The news was a bitter pill to swallow. Pregnant, and still going to war just to be by Caleb's side? They must be truly in love. I tilted my head back and drained the last of the bourbon from my flask. That afternoon, the governor held a grand review of the troops at the city gates. I watched from the shadows. Arthur Kingston, my mentor, looked like he had aged 20 years in just a few months. My heart tightened, but what hurt more was seeing the couple beside him, Sarah and Caleb. Caleb unbuckled his own scarlet cloak and wrapped it around Sarah's shoulders. He whispered something to the governor and then led her away. Despite the pain, a small part of me felt relieved. It seemed that even without me, Caleb was taking good care of her. Wow, how does it feel, General, seeing your fiancée with your favorite protégé? I knew that voice. It was Isabella. I turned to see her dressed in men's traveling clothes, a white linen shirt and breeches, holding a folding fan and smiling at me. If I didn't know who she really was, I'd have been fooled by that innocent look. Aren't you afraid I'll turn you in for the bounty? I have a feeling you won't. Guards. I only got half the word out before she slammed her hand over my mouth and dragged me into a nearby alley. Fine, I give up. You really were going to shout. She checked the street to make sure we were alone before letting go. What do you want? Make it quick, I said, my voice dripping with irritation. The Commonwealth is invading the North again. Regardless of who wins, the civilians are the ones who will bleed. You're the only one who can stop this catastrophe. For the sake of the innocent. I held up a hand to stop her. I never claimed to be a hero, and I didn't want to be one. When I led the army, I looked after the people. Now that I was nothing, it wasn't my problem. Princess, I don't care about the sake of the world. It's getting late. If you don't have anything else to say, I'm going to go find a bar. I turned to walk away. What about for the sake of your child? I stopped dead, looking back at her with confusion. What if I told you I was pregnant with your baby? She recounted everything that had happened after I lost control that night. I have to stand with the North. If I'm captured by the Commonwealth, it's my child who will suffer. She turned and walked away. I saw a tear catch the light as it fell from her eye. This woman was a master manipulator. I had no idea if she was telling the truth or playing another game. The final battle took place on a vast, open plain. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers stood ready to tear each other apart. A young officer in a scarlet cloak from the Commonwealth had already cut through a dozen Northern champions, defeating each in less than 3 moves. Seeing her best men terrified to engage, Isabella touched her stomach, her eyes filling with a quiet sorrow. But just as she was about to take the reins herself, a lone figure in a tattered cloak appeared on the horizon. She let out a breath she seemed to have been holding for weeks. Her eyes grew wet as the masked figure rode up to her and told her, "I'll stop this." I rode out to face the officer in the scarlet cloak. He raised his saber in a salute. "I am High General Logan Stone of the Commonwealth. Identify yourself, stranger." I froze. Logan Stone? He had taken my woman, my rank, my cloak, and now he had even stolen my name? A white-hot rage ignited in my chest. I had never been this angry in my entire life. Perhaps Caleb sensed my killing intent even through the mask because I saw him visibly shudder. It's a feeling experienced commanders know. If you're afraid before the first blow, you've already lost. Well, I didn't answer. He let out a roar and charged. His blade was inches from my head before I snapped back to reality, jerking my head aside. We traded blows for 50 rounds, neither gaining the upper hand. Caleb pulled his horse back, his chest heaving. "Who are you? How do you know the Sterling combat style?" I didn't answer. I didn't give him a chance to breathe. I pressed the attack until, exhausted, he was swept from his horse by my blade. As he tried to scramble up, I pressed the tip of my sword to his throat. "No, please stop." It was Sarah. She was running toward us, her hands clutching her pregnant belly. "Sarah, stay back. He's dangerous." Caleb ignored my sword and scrambled to his feet to shield her. But Sarah didn't look at him. She walked right up to me, Caleb hovering anxiously at her side. I turned my face away, unable to look at her. "Logan," she whispered, her voice trembling and thick with tears. "Is it really you?" I'm not who you think I am," I stammered. "It is you. I know you anywhere. The way you move. I've replayed it in my head 1,000 times these past months. I know it's you." She was sobbing, but she was smiling through the tears. "Logan, my God, it is you." Caleb ran up and tried to hug me, but I leveled my sword at his chest. "Brother, what are you doing?" he asked, looking genuinely confused. I ripped off the mask and threw it into the dirt. Don't call me that. I'm not your brother. Today, I'm letting you live. Our past is settled, but stay away from the north. As long as I'm here, you won't win. I turned my horse to leave. Logan, wait. You got it all wrong. Seeing you alive, it's the best thing that could have happened. I have so much to tell you. It's complicated. Please, come back to the camp. We'll explain everything. Sarah looked at me with pleading eyes. I needed to know the truth, so I nodded. Back at the command tent, Governor Kingston saw me and nearly collapsed with joy, pounding my shoulder and laughing. Then, they told me the whole story. After I went missing, Caleb had nearly gone insane trying to find me. Then, the Northern Army hung a body from their battlements wearing my armor. The Commonwealth Army, devastated, retreated. 2 months later, Sarah realized she was pregnant. She didn't care about the scandal of being an unwed mother, but she couldn't bear the thought of her child being mocked as fatherless or a bastard. The governor had Caleb marry her, a marriage in name only, to protect the child's legitimacy. And to make sure the child grew up with my name, Caleb had legally changed his last name to Loganstone and insisted the child take the Sterling name. I told them my story, the capture, the escape, and how I had seen their wedding. Sarah threw her arms around me, weeping into my chest. Logan, you went through so much. We only launched this campaign to avenge you. I came along because I wanted to personally see the people who killed you pay the price. Even the hardened men in the tent, the governor and Caleb, had wet eyes. As long as you're okay, that's all that matters, the governor said. He kicked Caleb, who was still crying. Come on, let's give them some space. Logan, Sarah whispered, still holding me tight. Since you were back, why didn't you just come to me? Remember the beggar at the gates the morning after the wedding? That was me. I wanted to ask, but the words wouldn't come. That was you? We went to the cathedral that morning specifically to pray for your soul. I guess the prayers were answered. She held me tighter. We talked all night, and the next day, the governor ordered the withdrawal of the troops. When we returned, the Supreme Commander was furious. He was an ambitious man who had spent his entire 30-year career at war. He couldn't accept a retreat without a victory. He placed us all under house arrest at the Kingston estate. Paradoxically, it was the happiest time of our lives. Time flew by. Sarah gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Holding him for the first time, I felt a joy I couldn't describe. But the peace didn't last. The Supreme Commander ordered me to lead a new invasion of the North. I learned that the general he had appointed to replace me had walked into a trap, losing 200,000 men. He had been executed upon his return. I didn't want to go, but the commander threatened the entire Kingston family if I refused. I took my old veterans and headed for the border. The night before I left, Sarah cried in my arms. While camped at the border, I was a nervous wreck. I didn't know if Isabella was really pregnant or if it was another trick. If it was true, and I had to fight her. A guard announced that a peasant woman wanted to see me. When she walked in, I couldn't help but laugh. It was Isabella, wearing the same grime-covered refugee outfit she'd used to kidnap me. I'm at the end of my rope, and you're laughing, she pouted, looking genuinely stressed. But with a woman like her, you never knew. What's the situation? I asked, getting straight to the point. She explained that the Northern Emperor had many children, but his favorites were Isabella and the 8th Prince. Isabella was a reformer who cared about the economy and the people. The 8th Prince was a warmonger who only cared about conquest. After I had defeated the prince in the First War, the Emperor had put Isabella in charge. She was the one who captured me and later wiped out the Commonwealth's replacement general. But the prince had convinced the Emperor that a woman shouldn't inherit the throne, especially one who might be carrying a foreigner's child. The Emperor had lured Isabella back and put her under house arrest. She had only escaped because her loyal guards had fought to the death to get her out. So what do you want from me? I asked. She pointed to her stomach. Isn't this enough? When I take the throne, your son will be the one who inherits it. How do I even know it's mine? Or a boy? I regretted the words as soon as they left my mouth. Her face turned bright red, and she began throwing whatever was within reach at me. When she ran out of things to throw, she started pounding on my chest with her fists. You think a princess of the Republic is that loose? Everyone is whispering behind my back, calling me a whore for carrying a bastard. And now you're saying it too? You bastard. I caught her hands. Fine, I'll help you. The next morning, we crossed the border. The 8th Prince was a tactical idiot. With Isabella's inside knowledge and the respect she commanded among the northern officers, the war was over in a month. We took the capital, and many of the northern units simply defected to us. Isabella showed mercy, keeping the emperor and the prince under comfortable house arrest within the palace. Late that night, I went to Isabella, now the empress, to say goodbye. Everything's ready, she asked, her voice soft and full of affection. Yeah, we head out tomorrow morning. Can't you stay another month? The baby will be here soon. Don't you want to see your child born? She hugged me. I don't want you to go. The Empress knows how to pout? Ha! Don't laugh. I mean it. I realized I can't do this without you. I thought I could handle everything on my own, but I only feel safe when you're here. I stroke her hair. The Supreme Commander is waiting. If I'm too late, he'll get suspicious, and Sarah and her father are still in his reach. That man is a snake. He's just like my brother. As long as he's in power, there will never be peace. I fell silent, thinking. Hey, she whispered, are you still mad at me for? You know, the first time we met. Why bring that up? It's in the past. Besides, you're carrying my kid. I'm not that petty. Then let me take care of you tonight. She whispered in my ear, her hands moving to my jacket. I swallowed hard, looking at her belly. Is that safe? She gave me a playful look. I'm very talented, Logan. At dawn, I led my troops back. I went straight to the Kingston estate and told the governor my plan. He hesitated for a long time, but with Sarah and Caleb urging him on, he finally gritted his teeth. Let's do it. The coup was nearly bloodless. We seized the capital and forced the Supreme Commander to sign his abdication. He was retired to a countryside estate, and Arthur Kingston was sworn in as the new president. A month later, word came from the north. Isabella had given birth to a son. I took Sarah and Caleb with me to visit. Isabella had prepared a palace for Sarah that was even more luxurious than her own, treating her like a sister. She even arranged for her younger sister to marry Caleb. We stayed there for 10 years, eventually returning to the Commonwealth to care for the governor in his final days. After his passing, Sarah took over the leadership. The following year, the two nations merged into a single union, governed jointly by the two women. Most days, I spend my time drinking bourbon and playing chess with Caleb, occasionally sparring to keep our edge. And at night, well, having two incredible women by my side is a life I wouldn't trade for immortality.